Hey there, good afternoon and welcome to The Nation. You're with me, Tamina Kausji, and we're coming live from the Bernama News Channel studios. And today, on this Monday, we take a deeper look at the child domestic violence survivors in Malaysia, looking at the existing frameworks of policy as well as law and well as social protection which is currently available to them. Now, just to go into the backstory a little bit, Malaysia ratified the Convention of Child Rights back in 1995 to uphold its commitment to the protection and welfare of her children. But more recently, on April 11, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail announced that Suhakam, the Malaysian Human Rights Commissioner, would actually be appointing a Child Rights Commissioner to resolve issues relating to the protection of children. Now, plenty of progress on the legislative front, yet there needs to be equitable awareness as well as proactive intervention to assist child survivors of domestic violence. Well, I have here with me on our panel today three individuals who would be best suited to answer a lot of the most burning questions about this issue. We welcome on the panel today Theban, who is a child rights advocate and survivor. Joining him is Charlene Murray, who is a case manager for Women's Aid Organization, or WAO, and as well with Alicia Othman, who is executive director and clinical psychologist with Souls Health. Welcome, studio, all of you. How are you this afternoon?
Good. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so let's get the ball rolling with perhaps Alicia as well as Charlene. Tell us about a little bit about, in your line of work, what have you found are some of the main causes of domestic violence towards children?
In the line of our work, we notice that a lot of the issues in terms of gender guiding lines, so the social culture aspect is an important contributor where women and children's rights are not seen as equal. So again, with domestic violence, it's an issue about the inequality of power. So in that sense, that's more of a systemic thing that we see across the cases that we see. But what we also have realized that it doesn't discriminate in terms of income levels, even in terms of religious beliefs across. At least the clients that we see, it comes in it does affect the different segments of the population.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically a lot of the same causalities. Charlene, in your arena of work, what has been the impact of domestic violence towards children? And with this, I in particular reference towards WAO's recently released report, Where is the Child, that really centers a lot of this information and statistics.
Okay. So as you know, WAO's core function is really to provide aid as well as relevant services to women who are experiencing gender-based violence and in particularly domestic violence. So where is the child in all of this? So we find that most often when women come to us seeking assistance, they come along with their children.
That's right.
And
all in one.
Yes, and it is very common, like what Alicia pointed out, for a child to experience domestic violence as long as they are in a household where domestic violence prevails. Now, WAO is very careful to not make the distinction between a child who has been physically hurt and a child who has simply been caught in the web of domestic violence. For us, and also in line with the report that we have released, as well as with backing of statistics and data, it shows that as long as a child is from a situation of domestic violence, he or she is a survivor in his or her own right.
That's right, exactly. So it's all about centering the child.
Yes.
With that in mind, Theban, I move into you. Now, you are a child rights advocate as well as a survivor yourself, but you essentially always speak more about needing to redefine the roles of masculinity in society. Why this first and foremost?
First and foremost, masculinity in a household. If a child has a masculinity of no caring, no love and support, the child will bring on this to his future and eventually will be very sharp or very aggressive to his family member, to his employees or his friends, and this will just lead on to a change of events. This will not have any changes unless we have to do something about it in the beginning, whereas a man will have to be more caring, more supportive towards a particular child, and this will be having good interpersonal skill. They'll be honest with their feelings, and eventually they will develop more other feelings, they'll feel more confident, and overall they will be a really good leader if they have a good environment in the future.
Yeah, and you've also been trying your best to create awareness about gender-based violence. How difficult or how easy has it been for peers of your own age especially to accept or to even listen into you when you're talking about such issues?
Well, for me, based on the people that I've met through my mother, it's been actually quite easy.
Right.
But having implementation to create awareness that it's been very hard, because we need to take precautionary steps, as we need more time. We need to say that this is happening, this is very serious, but we also can help you. All we need to do is just make a decision or call us, and we'll be happy to help you. That's all.
Yeah, so it's also about getting the survivors or even those who are currently in the situation to start to speak up. Charlene, what are some of the dynamics in particular of domestic violence that you have found that actually cut across socioeconomic barriers?
Like what Alicia mentioned as well, that we have found that socioeconomic status does not really affect the prevalence of domestic violence.
Right.
But I would have to say that something that cuts across all levels is the fact that women who have come to WAO or who have sought help definitely have not experienced domestic violence only once. And it's always a cycle. It's always after several cycles, and then that life event that makes them snap and say that, okay, this is it, and I would like to seek help. And in a lot of circumstances, their children are really the determining factor. Knowing that they themselves are in harm is difficult enough for them to get through the day, but knowing that the potential possibility that their children would be abused next and also impacted, and seeing the change in their children's attitude, in their children's daily lives, as well as seeing the pain in their children's eyes, that is really one of the determining factors why women come to us and say that I need help.
That's right, absolutely. So was that also the case for your mother, Liban? The concern for the welfare of yourself and your sister that also drove her towards not just seeking help, but getting you all into a safer, more conducive space?
That is true. My mother and my sister, they tried their very best to actually protect me from my father. He was very aggressive. So my mother tried her very best to make good with the situation, even though no matter how bad is it, that she make good with the situation. Then my sister also will try to help my mother, try to help me, to overall to make the home environment as good as possible.
That's right. So that's something that we often see, and this also cuts across socioeconomic borders. Alicia, in your experience, what is generally the impact upon child domestic violence survivors?
Okay,
behaviorally speaking.
Yeah, children, survivors of domestic violence, it is a major traumatic event in their life, and for those who experience DV, it's a prolonged, repeated exposure to an environment where usually they themselves do not have the autonomy to change it.
That's
unless,
right.
for example, when the mothers seek help at WAO or at other support. It has really adverse consequences in terms of cognitive development. So research has shown that children who've gone through this, traumatic events, although children are resilient, but there will be impacting their behaviors, such as in the short term, some will have depressive, anxiety symptoms. So either internalizing, becoming more withdrawn, and in adolescents, they are more predisposed to risky behaviors, such as self-harm, substance abuse. So, you can also see a lot of the younger children, their learning is also affected. So very often in schools, this manifests in terms of lower academic performance. And then again, there's a cycle where they are seen as, if you're not academically inclined, then you're the troublemaker. So it's like a cycle where they're not getting help, when it's actually a sign of distress.
That's right. And we are also, of course, on the screen playing a couple of visuals, especially there are in particular case studies taken from the report itself. Here, this one is showing about the different types of abuse that is endured. Charlene, moving on to you. Now, you're also in charge of ensuring that there is due diligence for every case that comes through WAO's doors as well. Tell us a little bit about how it is that you managed to coordinate the team of social workers, all the way from giving them the right sort of technical expertise and advice, so that each case is able to be addressed in the best possible manner and most timely one too.
Okay, so we have a systematic way of working on social work. First and foremost, we formulate safety plans with mothers as well as the children, taking into account that not everyone can readily just walk out the door. The moment the safety plan is established, we have what we call face-to-face consultations with women. And we sit down with them and we pretty much listen to them as well as map out the options that they have, tailored
like
to each individual. Yes, so tailored to each individual need, as well as taking into account that every domestic violence case is different.
That's
so
right.
it could be the same scenario, same amount of children, same kind of perpetrator, same kind of abuses that are endured, but life circumstances, the number of children you might have, or the socioeconomic impact of taking that decision to walk out of that situation varies, and therefore that's how we tailor our plan.
Right.
And so moving along to the question that you have is how do I then make sure that due diligence is taken into account? So once we've completed all those steps which are considered the baseline of how we address each case, then we go into the finer details, assisting them for legal interventions, assisting them to get interim protection orders, or if they are not ready to lodge a police report, potentially an emergency protection order, which can be obtained from social welfare or JKM.
Right.
And if they do need support, whether or not they need shelter, WAO still follows through with their case management, and we always make sure that when a family comes into the care and support as well as receive the services that we give out, we don't just say that this is just for the mother. We always
you extend
inquire
it to the wider net, which of course includes the children.
The
as
children,
well. Right.
And what we typically do is so the easiest example to give would be individuals who come to us and are in a shelter setting.
Right.
So we understand that children are most often uprooted, regardless
out of the familiar home atmosphere as
regardless
well.
of whether it's an abusive home or not, but they are uprooted from something which they would have considered a routine.
That's
and
right.
getting them back into some kind of routine to resume some normalcy in their lives, but also looking at them as individual clients and individual needs, it's something which is challenging.
That's
so
right.
This is where I work together with my amazing team of social workers
to sort of streamline
yes
all of that.
So we go through each and every case, and it sounds very tedious, but there is a
But it's
systematic
necessary
way
as well.
and necessary, because every child at a different age, at a different situation, would have a different need.
That's
but
right.
what we try to make sure at our setting is to ensure that the most important thing that is provided to them is psychosocial assistance, which really links us up with Soul's Health.
Right. So speaking about psychosocial assistance, perhaps Alicia Tiban, you could tell me a little bit about, from your perspective as a survivor, why and what was exactly the psychosocial support that you received that made it easier for you to reintegrate back and get your normal routine back and even focus on your academics?
At the age of 15 years old, I started developing a lot of anger issues, aggressiveness, all due to my father, because when I was young age, because when a child sees this behavior from the parents, he's obviously going to adapt to it.
That's right. Children model what they see in adults.
Yes. And having that, I was very sharp to other people, very rude. Then my mother told me this: take your energy, harness your energy into something positive, which I did. It was very hard for me. It was really, really hard. It took me a few months, actually, few months to almost a year. So, but I started getting good results, getting names in my schools. I was not an A+ student, but I did able to interact with a lot of teachers, principals. I met a lot of persons, and by having my mother telling me, harness your energy to something positive, I really could manage to keep up with my studies and other stuff today.
That's right. So, Alicia, now you also, your research areas include studying mood and anxiety disorders, learning disorders. How does domestic violence actually impact children in this arena from what you found out so far?
So, so children who have experienced, again, this is considered very complex trauma. So the symptoms or the manifestation is usually in the physiology and psychological. So I think what is different than the typical mental health client is that the focus on the physiology is also there. So that's why I think when you mentioned the anger, right?
Yes.
So there's the emotion, the psychological part, but there's also the behavior that comes with it.
Right.
Yeah.
The accompanying behavior.
Accompanying behavior, yeah. So so when working with, again, the manifestation comes in terms of learning difficulties because trauma affects the cognitive development.
That's
so. A lot of the interventions, when we work with WAO, the first part of it is stabilization and safety. So they are doing a lot more of the psychosocial part. We are doing the specialized psychosocial part, where we're focusing on how, for example, the survivors find words to describe it. A lot of time, trauma is
communication.
Communication. And also specific interventions that's customized, tailored to the needs of the families. It could be as from parenting skills, because now the mother has to take on the main caregiver role. So how does the mother then do the parenting with a child, or with certain children if they have internalizing, more like withdrawn behavior? So how do we use art therapy or play therapy to help them to be able to express in a safe space?
That's right. So expressing within a safe space as well. Now, speaking about safe spaces, tell us a little bit about what is the general reaction, especially of women who've just survived domestic violence, and when they're coming together with their children, how do they start trusting again before they are able to actually begin the process to recovery, or is that something that happens hand in hand?
I think it depends on the varying clients. Some women come to us with a fresh outlook that okay, this is the safe place and this is where I'm going to be, and here is better than anywhere else I was before. But we also have clients that come to us with a lot of trepidation and feelings that I will have to learn to trust this person again, regardless of what you tell them. And it's a process. It's a process that we go through with them. But also, it's also something that it's also a process of learning how to re-communicate with other people who are not your alleged perpetrators.
That's right.
And
even your basic needs.
Yes,
right?
even your basic needs. For example, we do have women who come to us and wouldn't tell us that they have basic necessities that they need, because they are afraid of asking that, because they've been in a situation where basic necessities are not something that they can typically ask
they can
for,
vocalize for,
or they can vocalize for, correct. And it works the same way for their children. So the common things that we see with the children is that they come in a especially if they're younger. The common complaints that mothers have is hyperactivity, delayed learning,
for the children,
tantrums, excessive crying. And the children don't exactly say to you that I'm behaving this way because I have seen and I've had a overload of stimuli, but that's how they act it out. And so that
it's not a straight line.
Correct. And so that is where we have to work along with the mothers as well, to see how they can be part of the recovery journey for their children, because that is also part and parcel as a recovery journey for themselves.
That's true. Now, Teban, moving back to you, what was instrumental in your own recovery journey? Was it more about your mother's healing, or was it more that your psychosocial needs were also met? Was there a turning point for you after which you knew, I think I'm going to be okay?
It was actually my mother's and my sister's healing together. Both of my mother and my sister really helped me into the person who I am today. But also my past, what in child, also plays a big role in what I'm doing today, because I'm able to decide decisions that are hard decisions, but I'm able to solve problems more quickly, more in depth, more futuristically. Yes, more futuristically in the long term. If I choose this decision, what's going to happen? So my past played a good role in my future, and also my mother, she told me a lot. She gave me a lot of motivation. My sister gave me a lot of love and support, and I'm just trying to create awareness, like, to other children who's also having the same problems. Like, you can choose to be better.
That's right.
Yes.
So I think from you we get a lesson of how one can actually be better. And on the screen we're actually playing a couple of slides, which again are from Women's Aid Organization report, Where is the Child?, which are illustrations from the different cases which they've worked on. This one, of course, is of a child who communicates about what it was like going to the police station when an incident of DV actually occurred within their domestic sphere. Now, moving into the bigger questions. The bigger questions being, what does it mean for child rights to be incorporated into the response to domestic violence, and why is this essential?
Okay. So we are a firm believer that no one individual should be tasked with assisting individuals who are survivors of violence. And so when we talk about how child rights can be incorporated into the bigger response, into the bigger picture, we're talking about a community-based response. And the community being schools, teachers, neighbors, extended family members, friends, and even individuals like us who provide that support. And also, of course, news agencies and the larger picture, which are media, creating awareness that child protection is really an area that is not a niche area for only certain individuals to undertake. It is the responsibility of the society.
So I love the community empowerment angle. Alicia, your take on this and how Soul's Health is also integrating in this arena, also through your outreach with WAO.
Yeah, I think our partnership with WAO was very, very timely and something that, you know, it helped us to accelerate also the work with our clients, because if they, just giving an example of a client who's experienced domestic violence, without the psychosocial support that WAO is supporting, you know, legal, from the legal advice to shelter to, you know, the basic practical needs, it is very difficult for us to do our work as well in terms of the restorative part, in terms of providing that intervention for them to transition effectively. So I think I'm echoing what Charlene is saying in terms of the community-based support, where we need to engage. So very often when we work with our survivors, we want to engage the sense of belonging. So where is it that they can get that social support? Because most of the survivors, usually they're isolated, they're cut off, you know, due to the
circumstances.
You know, the circumstances. They're cut off from that simple support of, oh, can somebody babysit my child while I'm going to work? You know, which other people may have. So that, I think, that sense of belonging, and from there, then they have that confidence and ability to know that they are able to confidently transition, into that the next part of their life.
That's right. So Theban, what were some of the things that helped you also to feel like you were integrated into the wider social network, and how instrumental was that in helping not just yourself but your mother and your sister also to get back on track?
I would say that confidence part, right after what my mother told me to take the energy, be something positive, I'm trying to get out myself out of my comfort zone. Get out of the comfort zone, be more in the world, be more experienced, talk to more people, meet new people. By having that, I actually grew my confidence level. I grew my insecurity. My insecurity was very high, but then I managed to hold of it, bring me more calm. And by having that, I actually got a job, a really good job in the age of 17 years old. I worked at a data company job.
Wow. So that also puts you in a professional setting where you have further challenges, but also you develop even more.
Yeah, I developed even more. Then after the job, I read a lot of books. I was reading a lot of books. I was doing...
So self-development as well.
All this self-improvement.
Exactly.
And I went to university, an award-winning university. And I managed to meet a lot of other people. And they also had the same similar story than me, but then we are like a community. We actually grew out of it and doing good stuff for the other society.
Exactly.
So
it's all about, making that human connection, but also sharing your stories. Now, if we could end with this, perhaps, what are some of the gaps in the current response to child domestic violence for survivors, and how can we actually improve this response? Perhaps from each one of your perspectives, Charlene.
Where do I start?
Okay, just give us your 10 seconds of time.
Okay, so I think the most important gap that is there and really needs to be addressed is the availability and the accessibility of psychosocial support for children and mothers who are experiencing domestic violence. So the reason why I'm saying this is because for individuals who do come to WAO, that is the pathway. That when you come to us, there is psychosocial support, and we team up together with Soul's Health or other psychologists to provide that. But we're talking about the larger picture, which is Malaysia.
Exactly.
And where
and
do
we're
women
also speaking about the Sabah, the Sarawak as well, outside of Klang Valley.
Yes,
exactly.
So outside of Klang Valley, what is the support system which enables women to access not just the justice that is needed, but also to access psychosocial assistance
easily? The first couple of steps,
yes.
Right. Point well made. Alicia, from your perspective.
I think it's the capacity building of the people who are working in this area, because it tends, that it's an under-resourced environment.
Yes.
So there's so much of one psychologist, one social worker can do. So that we definitely need to upskill more people to be trained, to be able to take on the case, and also to reduce the turnover, because very often the people working in this area, the burnout rate is very high.
Exactly.
So how to provide the professional support to ensure that people can still continue to do the work.
Exactly, all pertinent matters. Stephen, we'll end the session with you and your message to other child domestic violence survivors.
I say the gaps, from my experience, was actually in the school. In the school, we are always being taught as get good grades, be in clubs, do all progressive stuff. But you don't see a poster or a sign, come and talk to us in a counselling, come and talk, be honest with your feelings. It's okay to show your feelings as well, no? It's not okay. In the school, it's like, go for it, but
it's not all right to show that you're suffering.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we're having like a simple
And speaking
poster.
about the numbers and the hotlines, etc., we actually have the WAO numbers, as well as the website, as well as the WhatsApp number, which is being playing on the screen right below us.
And then my message for me to everyone is actually, you please talk, make a decision to talk, even though even the slightest one, have a person to talk, and eventually you have a positive impact in the long term.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you all so much for the session today. I think we've learned that little bit more about childhood domestic violence, surviving it, and not just approaches towards rights, but also recovery. We hope that you will reach out to the numbers that have been playing on the screen if you are in the situation where you do need the help, regardless of whether you're a woman or a child in need. I'm Tamina Khalji signing off here on The Nation. We'll see you again next time.
Isu semasa, merangkumi politik, ekonomi, sukan serta hiburan. Membawakan anda agenda pentas dunia. Saksikan Ruang Bicara setiap Isnin hingga Jumaat di BN